Let's go.
Okay. All right. So, welcome to the first episode of the brand new radio show that we don't know what it's going to be called yet.
Right. Yeah. This is a beta testing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A beta testing that's available for general availability. It's a GA that's still
GA
waiting.
availability.
Yep. Um, do you want to kind of discuss what we might? I kind of want to maybe talk about what we might call the show. I had some new ideas
Okay.
this week.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
sounds good.
I
Just
can. But
go ahead. Go ahead.
well, I can start by maybe sharing some things, and then maybe if you have some ideas, or if you've already had some ideas. So let's see. Let me look at my notes here real quick. Uh, um, let's see. Hmm. Well, I thought I put them in that note, but I evidently didn't. Well, one idea. Let's see if I can remember it. Was something about being on the path together. There was actually
Yeah.
a guy that I was talking to from another meetup last week that was actually kind of like encouraging me to kind of put a shingle out for a healing ministry or whatever it is, that's coming up in my heart. And he was talking about like, kind of like walking on the path together, or of course we had that really funny one last week, the spiritual fart.
Yeah, the spiritual
But
I like what you're saying, like being on the path. Yeah, I think like a general spirit talk, like general spirituality for the
yeah,
every person and what it means to be actively living on the path. I think
yeah.
that'd be
And
great.
then and then I also thought this morning, I was thinking it'd be nice if in that title it could reflect both the negative, the dark side, and the light side. Because I think there's this perception out there that people who talk about spirituality aren't really getting down into the practical problems of the real world.
Right.
And I was thinking about maybe trying to counter that perception a little bit. So some, and there's another aspect to that too. Like, yeah, maybe it's reality for us that we are experiencing these states of bliss and this happiness, and that we see oneness, but yet we still, it's not like we're escaping reality and just being on that level, but we're actually on that level in reality, but still there's the perception that we're not looking at the everyday realities and the dark sides of things, even within us. And
Right.
and so I was kind of thinking, well, we could say something like walking the path of darkness and light. I mean, that's a pretty obvious, not a great idea, but starting there and maybe coming up with something more catchy. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's just one thought. So
Yeah. I like the idea of that. And just general spiritual talk. And I was just coming up with the idea of spiritual psychology.
oh,
Um,
nice.
so
Uh,
how the spiritual mind works.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
So I would then want to maybe say spiritual, uh, or the walk of the mind and the spirit, maybe uh, walking together in mind and spirit, or heal, or walking together in psychology and spirit. I don't know. That's,
walking together in spirit and psyche.
hey, there's a good one. Yeah, because
or
it,
walking together through spirit and psyche, through or
yeah,
in.
yeah. And then I guess the one concern that I think I might have shared this before too, uh, is that that, and again, I don't know exactly what legally is required, but being careful not to be counseling people where you're not supposed to do it if you don't have a license.
Right, I get it.
So I love going into the mind and going into the psyche, and I think that should actually be free ground, free territory for people who are talking about the full human being. And just because there's this industry out there that's helping people and has all their regulations and standards shouldn't mean that we can't talk about the full human being, you
Of
know.
course. Yeah. Yeah,
So
but I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it doesn't have to necessarily be in the title. It was just the idea of
mhm.
sort of the foundations of what we could sort of just the
Well, it could be
exactly
in the
what we're doing,
title,
right?
but we might have to give some sort of disclaimer at the
Sure.
beginning.
Yeah.
And there's another thing too that I came across recently where uh, there were people who are putting on certain workshops, and they usually had people sign agreements, to not sue them or come after them. And they forgot to do it one time. And it just so happened that that one person came after them. And I'm not trying to breed fear here or anything, but I'm just saying, just keeping in mind that if somehow these talks got into an area where we were kind of like counseling somebody in the talk, if we might want to think about, do we need to have some protection?
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if you dealt with that
I mean, I
before
think
or ever thought about it.
I have. I have. I mean, I've been pretty much giving spiritual advice for 6 years, and I've never run into a problem. Mainly because I've always just stayed in flow, and I've always tried. I just always who the people I was talking to. There was always like safe interactions, because I always felt like we were designed to be there together, to
Mm,
talk to each other, and there was a natural contract between me and that person for growth.
hmm.
And I
Okay.
think there's a natural law that is underneath what our current government legal systems are, what we would codify. I would jokingly call that Muggle law. And
Hmm.
so Muggle law is our current understandings of the order of space. So law is basically how do you govern space for safety purposes, right? So
Hmm.
we
Yeah,
have
yeah.
our egoic distinctions that do that.
Space and
But what we
time.
don't Exactly. But what we don't seem to forget is that the universe has been doing that for millions of years, long
Mhm.
before we ever had a constitution or had any sort of political thought or any sort of idea. And those laws are the laws of physics and the laws of organization, and far supersede those other laws. So if you hang in that realm, you're safe. You're pretty safe. Most people get caught in the matrix of the other law, and that gets them pulled into
So
that.
I'm always open to any ideas and positions because I don't even fully understand somebody's ideas and positions most of the time.
Yeah.
We're all susceptible to that. We make our interpretations and our associations, and we don't know everything that you've gone through and thought through to get to where you are or experienced. So my initial reaction to that is I don't know if I agree with that, given that qualifier. Um, but yet again, in a way, I could say maybe I do agree with it, but I agree. I can maybe try to draw an analogy within your system of thinking to where somehow in the laws of physics, the way that the planets and the all the forces worked against each other, there were things coming together and things pulling apart that could kind of be looked at. Uh, maybe one thing was defending against another, and so a contract is kind of maybe a type of that, or
Well,
you know,
yeah, a contract is a chemical, is basically a chemical composition. A
like a
contract is just that.
protocol, right? How things
It's a
communicate,
protocol.
right?
Yeah, it's a protocol that says this thing should do this. Like a chair is a
Mhm.
chair, a bird is a
Right.
bird, a wall is a wall, a supermodel is a supermodel, and so on and so forth. Those are natural laws because it's basically a way of basic. It's basically like a form of it's a form of algorithm that defines what something is and what it's supposed to do,
And
and
things
that's a contract.
right, and things transition uh, as things change and grow and move, or as things entropy or whatever go in either direction. And as things change, that contract or protocol might have to change with it. So you could maybe say that when we get to the level of abstract thinking as human beings, that have that high level of abstract thinking, that maybe contracts are kind of like an abstraction of that kind of chemical contract. I don't know,
Yes.
just
Yeah. Yeah, what happens is people get the law that I was talking about, the government law, the ones that are laws are basically from what happens is there's a part of the consciousness, and we talked about this last time, that is observing space from a separate place. And then it is observing that place, and then it is looking at reality, and then it detaches from reality and goes up in its head to come up with intellectual ideas in order to organize space. So what is actually happening is those ideas aren't actually really defined by energy. They're defined by a person's idea and concept of energy, which is not the same thing. It's disconnected. So most of our modern philosophies about the way we see the world, the way we organize the world, is actually a form of collective insanity because we're not actually grounded in reality. We're grounded in our heads. We're thinking about reality. We're not actually are in reality. And that's a major difference. If you get out of your head and into your heart, as they say, then you're actually in real energy. You're experiencing
no.
real energy.
Here's where we might have
That's
kind of a
my
different.
viewpoint.
We could be the same on this, or we could be different. This is really interesting because I feel like some systems they kind of separate out certain aspects of ourselves from other aspects and say, well, these aspects are real and these aspects aren't real. But to me, like I feel like some systems, like of religion, they kind of like say you need to eradicate the shadow side. But in that example, I feel like it's more like I want to embrace my shadow side. And my shadow side is a part of me that if I love it, it actually is a
Yeah.
healthy, strong thing. And so the abstract mind to me is an extension of the physical reality. The fact that we've developed these minds and then these minds
Yeah.
have the capability, it's kind of like, so to me,
No, I agree.
oh, do you? Okay,
I agree with
so
you. I just mean
okay.
what I'm saying is that when what happens is people when they get separate, they get disassociated and they go
Hmm.
into their mind and
They
their
go
mind
like,
disconnects them from reality.
right. It's
Yeah,
like they're doing the opposite of what we were just talking about.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
They're
but
going
then
into
if
the
you
mind and disassociating the natural, right?
exactly,
Right,
exactly,
right. Okay,
exactly.
okay. Cool,
So
cool.
if
Yeah.
if you bring the two together, then they're both you're in the mind,
Yep.
but you are also in the body and in the
In the
reality
body
in the same
and also
place.
in the
Yeah,
spirit. Yeah.
right.
And
Exactly.
and
So
so yeah.
what happened, back in the day, human beings evolved to go they out of fear and out of control, they started going more and more into their heads to try to solve problems. And then they began to
Right,
code their reality from that.
right.
And
They
then
threw
that
away
created
empiricism and went totally just to
right.
scientific thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
The
then that
experience.
created basically our egoic intellectual thinking,
Right.
which
I
has some
think, therefore
bearing.
I am.
Exactly.
Mhm.
But it hasn't, there's a whole other layer of reality that we miss when we come at it from that plane. And so if we
Exactly.
come at it, not, that's all I'm saying.
Mhm.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. So, long
I think
story
we're
short,
coming
does
from,
that mean we can maybe think about having a disclaimer or some
yeah,
kind of,
yeah,
okay.
I'm fine. Whatever makes you
Okay.
feel safe is fine.
We can cross that bridge just before we get to it, maybe, if that ever comes up.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was just sort of laying out
Yeah,
before we call it whatever it is. I was just sort of laying
right.
out the foundation of what we
Yeah,
could talk about, you know.
perfect. By
And
the
I think,
way,
like you were
your
saying,
head's cut
walking the
off just
path.
a little bit, the bottom part. There you
Okay.
go. Wouldn't want
Yeah.
to miss any of the beauty. So.
Thank you. Yeah.
Wow, what a nice smile.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, your chin's still cut off a little bit again.
I'm sorry.
There
I
you
got
go.
shy. I got blushed. I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you. Oh, oh,
Your chin is the
stop
most
looking
shy
at me.
part of
Stop
you.
looking at me. Yeah.
So your
Yeah,
chin's more shy than
you
the
got me
rest of
all
your face.
mushy. Yeah, it is. I love
Okay,
my chin.
chinny chin chin.
Yeah.
It's gone again. And it's like
Sorry.
your phone keeps drift. It's like
Yeah.
you
It's in
gotta
my
tighten
hand.
the screw or something.
Yeah. I need to get one of those
Gravitational
things.
forces. The gravitational force is working against the force of attraction.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, gravitational force is the force of attraction. That didn't make sense. Okay. The force of embarrassment is working against gravitational force. Oh, oh, you're not frozen. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. When I
So, well,
walk,
I was
I cut off
thinking,
my head too because I'm holding my phone when I'm walking.
I was thinking, having, so the question I came up with was how, just for the talk, is how do we walk the spiritual path in daily life and
Man, I love that we're
navigate
doing
the
this.
light and navigate the light, navigate the light and dark. And so being a general spirituality talk about how to navigate the spiritual path in our
Okay.
lives.
And I think the name of our radio show can mutate over time, just the way life does. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll say
How
now. Okay,
about,
welcome people. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, I just saw, like, you were talking about the spiritual going between the dark and the light. How about something like walking the line, or walk the line, or
Hmm.
something like that?
Kind of
Walking the
sounds like
line.
a 70s movie, walking the line with a big stick.
There there was a movie called that, I think, Walk the Line, or
Yeah.
it could be
It sounds a little
walking.
corny. I know you could take
Oh,
I
okay.
know you could take a real reaction. Walk the
No,
line.
that's okay. I wasn't
It
offended.
it, it, it kind of sounds you were. It's gonna
I
make me walk.
wasn't.
Okay. It kind of sounds like you better walk the line. Like we're
Oh,
the
it does.
super ego coming down on people or something. But I think I see the perspective you're meaning it by, like, walk the line between the psyche and the spirit.
Right.
I see
Walking the
what
line
you
between
sorry, I'm in a
dark and
goofy mood.
spirit.
Hey, sorry,
Because
I'm
it's
having
like,
fun. Is that bad?
no, I know
Okay.
you're allowed. Yeah.
Okay.
Only between, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Only it's like specialized hours
Right.
can you do that.
Only if I walk the line.
Only if you walk the line.
Right.
Yeah.
In your meaning, not my meaning.
Yeah.
Uh
And you're, yeah. There are different rules for my meeting.
Okay, so walking the line together.
Walking the line together, maybe, yeah.
Or
Just something general like spirit talk, even. We could call it that for now, and change.
I don't think that's general enough. Can we get more general than that? Just joking.
That's really general.
That's really general. Spirit talk. We could get more specific and just say talk.
Yeah.
I actually feel like I do like some sort of kind of indication of something. I still feel real strongly. So I was in a meeting last night where I was talking about the subject of the meeting. It was a consciousness connections meetings, and they had discussions with people together instead of just like somebody teaching and people asking questions afterwards. I really love the discussions, and the question was, is oneness and sameness the same, or is it different? With the interest of kind of like looking at spirituality against diversity and having disadvantaged groups supported also where there's discussion, like we all want to be one, but are we accepting everyone in that oneness, even people that are in maybe disadvantaged groups or whatever? And are we recognizing that? And what I experienced during the meeting was that when I was expressing like the things that I had experienced in oneness, like in meditation and some of my deeper experiences of actually going into the oneness and experiencing like the light, the music of the song of God, and the beauty of the colors and the vibrations, and even I was talking about all this positive stuff, and I was really genuinely sharing things that had really happened to me, and how that oneness, I saw that was a common denominator, and it's a construction of everyone. And when you see everyone coming from that oneness and all those beautiful things, it kind of like shows, it attracts us to one another, and diversity becomes beautiful because in the oneness we have all these different things that come from those fundamental things, and that's part of the beauty. And then all of a sudden, a little ways into the meeting, there was kind of this general consensus that I was talking about all these wonderful things, but I wasn't talking about the down and dirty, difficult things of everyday world that we live in, where people are really suffering and people are really not helping people that are suffering, right?
Good. Yeah.
And so so then I thought about it, and I thought, well, in the future, because this happened to me one time in another meeting, at least, as well. And but my path to that point has been one of much suffering. I don't think I would have ever gotten to where I was if I hadn't had a lot of suffering in my life that opened me up to the fear and to the breakdowns that were in me, that I couldn't get to myself, that I had to go through the deeper and deeper into awareness that opened up that meditation and brought me to experiences of oneness. And so I thought, well, whenever, bless you.
Sorry.
At you. Back at you.
I just sneezed all over you. Sorry. I just coated Mustafar.
Yeah.
Mustafar got rained on. Sorry.
I know. It's sizzling with
it is, but the sun
juice.
dried it. Sin dried up the zit spaghetti right up.
It transmorphed the zits into Zen.
Yes.
So then I thought, whenever I share about all these wonderful things that I've experienced, I should make sure that I also talk about that the dark side, is part of that experience. I had an experience once where I actually had proven to me the existence of God and of all eternity. And the way that it came to me was because the longing in my heart, I had just had a dog die, and he was like a child to me. And the longing to connect with him was so immeasurable. I sat in my backyard and I was looking at the moon, and I was even feeling that there was a presence in the moon and that there was love coming from the moon. And then I suddenly realized, man, the moon's been there like billions of years, and the moon's been loving the earth for billions of years. And I could just feel my longing to connect to that love and to connect to the love of God and to connect to my dog where his being was now got so extreme that I almost got to the experience in me of like indescribable extremeness. And right at that moment, I suddenly experienced that I could not have all that longing if there wasn't something real that I was longing for that was beyond the physical world, that was God. And that it was because my longing wasn't just immeasurable, but my longing was to be with my loved one for all of eternity. That's how much I love my dog. And so it was like even eternity in that moment became obvious, but it was through my suffering and my longing. And then later on, when I reflected on that, I realized that even like the planets, we got these points of light in the universe, and they're like the love or the light and the vibration. But in between that, we have all this darkness, and it's vast regions of darkness that are much bigger than the points of light. And there's that the gravitational force though is still in that darkness. And gravity is like the longing. It's the longing to connect. It's what pulls things together. And so the light is in the universe, but the darkness is in the universe too. And it's part of what makes it all what it is, the longing to connect and the connection, the fulfillment of that. And so the suffering that we go through is like that darkness in between. And that's where the love fills in, the light fills in. And so, I just thought whenever I talk about the high points, I want to make sure I include that the darkness and the is a part of that and has helped me to get there. And all of that I want to stick in one title.
Okay, yeah, that's our
Yeah,
title. What you just said is the
what I
one
just
title.
said.
I'm gonna have trouble remembering that. I hope you don't say like,
Damn.
don't, you have to remember that or your life depends on it, because I might
I
die
know.
pretty quickly.
You don't have
Yeah,
to remember it. You
I
have to
remember the part
experience
about
it.
the dog and the moon. I remember about that part. So,
The dog and the moon.
so
Boy,
the
hey,
dog and
that's
the
an
moon,
idea. The dog
the
and the
dog
moon.
and the moon. That
That's the name of our radio show.
sounds good to me. Damn, I think we can
I
at least
know.
placehold it. That's a placeholder at least for now.
It's
It's
kind of
not
like
bad,
it.
really.
It's kind of like if you're smoking marijuana and you're really, really high and you think of this thing that just sounds so awesome. And when you're not high
Well, I
anymore, you
mean,
look at that and you
well, the
go like,
moon. I mean,
man,
there
why did I
is.
think that sounds awesome?
I mean, I don't
What?
know. I mean,
What was I
both
thinking?
of those, both of those things have. You could call it
Oh,
the dog in the moon, even, because the moon is in tarot
mm,
is illusion, which represents the dark side, and the dog is what is our part of ourselves that we're training
mm.
to go back into the light.
It's
It's
kind of
the
the
part of us
unconditional love too, because
yeah, it's
dogs
where we're
love
bringing
unconditionally.
right, but it's like there's a training that is done, like
Mm.
Zen masters train themselves to bring their
Mhm.
mind back to oneness and back to peace. And so, but
Right.
they go, you have to go through the dog, you have to go through the moon to train your dog.
Mhm.
So
So the
dog
only
dog at the moon, it doesn't sound too bad.
it
Or the
doesn't, but
dog.
the only I guess that my only problem with that is when you really get, and this might not be a consideration. This might just be a problem that
Yeah,
isn't really a
it's okay.
problem, right? But
I just like,
no,
it was a good,
seriously,
I
I'm
liked
thinking
it.
it might not be a problem, but I'm just maybe thinking it might be a problem.
Yeah. Okay.
So what I'm thinking is it's so general that people really wouldn't have any idea what it might mean, right? Not general,
No,
but it's so ambiguous. Like
it
it's
is a little
not,
bit. Yeah,
yeah, but it's catchy. It's catchy.
it's cool.
The dog in the moon.
We could just throw things out until they hit.
Yeah. I actually we should. It might be a good idea to take a note on that. Start a new note here.
Yeah, I put it down.
Oh,
Dog in
okay.
the moon. The walk to oneness, or something like that. One, it was just cool because that was kind of what your whole experience with the dog in the moon was about.
The walk, uh, the walk of pain and oneness.
That's now, I just said the walk through oneness is or the walk
Oh,
towards oneness or something.
the walk towards what? And that's kind of where it gets into the thought of the painful walk towards oneness. But then it's not all pain, So the pain and joy, the pain, the
Yeah,
painful and joy.
I didn't say pain.
No,
Oh,
no, no.
go ahead.
I'm
Oh,
adding
okay.
that. The
Oh, okay.
the painful and joyful walk towards oneness.
Yeah.
Or but to I mean that's just one idea. But then I was thinking of the walk towards oneness. The other idea that I have at that point then is that the pain and joy could be a little bit more generalized back to dark and light. The dark and light walk towards oneness. The dark light journey to oneness. So many spiritual things. It seems like with good intention, they're always kind of like talking about the good side, kind of like people are in the suffering, come to our group because we're going to talk about what can make your suffering better, right? But my idea is to include in the group both sides of that. But maybe it's unnecessary. So, but anyway, we can go with
Yeah,
what,
I see where you're coming from. I think it is really important not to forget the darker sides of it. It's an integration. It's a walk of
mhm,
integration. It's a walk of both experiences, because we are dualistic. We experience two channels,
right.
and so
Oh,
you know
go ahead, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you.
no, it's okay.
The suffering and joy on the walk to oneness. But see, the whole idea of the walk to oneness is kind of like our destination is not going to have the suffering and the pain in it anymore. So I'm even wondering about that. But anyway, what I'd like to do now is I'd like to just do kind of like a little beta introduction to the radio show.
Sounds good.
So welcome everyone out there to our new radio show with Frank Flayton and Robin Hood uh, of Suffering and Joy on the Walk to Oneness. And I actually typed walk like you cooking. The walk
Yeah, that works, because it
on
is like
the
that. Well, no, it is. It really much is. Because it's because you're talking about integration. So the integration is an alchemical process, and in order to alchemalize something, you need heat. And so that's where, you know, the fire of our temptation and of energy comes up and forms resistance to help bring the light and the dark together.
The
And
purity, right?
that's how it works, to bring
And the
out purity, because
purification. Yeah.
it's alchemy. So we're actually cooking ourselves. That's why there's the dragon, which is, we
And the
really are.
sun.
We're yeah, because that's what the ancient masters were talking about in alchemy, is to bring yourself back to light. You basically have to regenerate yourself through fire. Jesus talked about baptize yourself through fire, and that's what he meant, you know. And that's why you integrate your dark side, which is the fire. That's the part of you that experiences the pain and the suffering and the misery. And those two are always playing off each other. They're always yin and yanging with each other, always fighting each other in some kind of way, you know. And that can manifest itself in all kinds of interesting ways. And so in a legitimate path, those things will begin to dance with one another and then come together, which is what the Kundalini is. So when you begin to awaken, both of those parts of yourself begin to ignite, and then to do that. Yeah, but you need movement, you need fire to make that work, which is why what you just did was the dragon.
And
that's
the
why
movement, the energy in this movement, and also the energy in the movement up, right?
Exactly. That's because you need energy to make it work, to make it spark.
Emoting motion. Emotion.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm not sure what the meaning of that tongue was, but it was definitely there.
I was just
there was energy in
adjusting
that tongue.
I was just adjusting my lip. It was like a natural, like something like an animal would do, like something like that. It was not. It wasn't directed.
Trying to get that last oat.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was a little bit of avocado I missed there.
You reminded me of a really friendly llama just now.
Right. That's what I am. I'm a friendly llama. That's what we could call the show too. The friendly
llama. Let me tell you that.
Write it down.
Oh.
So I mean, those are good. I mean, the friendly llama. And the dog in the moon. Those are
the spiritual fart. Let's not forget that.
Spiritual fart.
We
dog in the moon.
Explain how we got the spiritual fart. Why don't you take that one, Frank?
People will know. People will know. They'll just be like, "Oh yeah, okay, spiritual fart."
Yeah, no, but you did have a story to go with that.
Oh, my story was that I don't fart without spiritual knowing about it.
Yeah. When he wakes up in the morning, before he even farts,
I don't do a fart. That isn't mandated.
He's already opening himself to the spirit, opening his heart
by spirit
before he even farts.
Right. Is it okay for me to can I fart? Can I fart now? Anyone?
If you're gonna fart in love and oneness.
Right. There it is. Walking the path between fart and oneness.
Walking the path toward the oneness fart.
Yeah. There was a well-known Buddhist book called A Path with Heart. So we could do a path with fart.
There you go. The only problem with the fart thing is I've noticed that when I'm walking around the house thinking to myself about that title or any title thereof, I have this distinct feeling that it's just not as funny and very unrelatable to what in the hell that could actually mean. That would be meaningful. There's outside of it, you know, it's like.
You're right. I'm just playing.
Oh, no. I was very, very tempted in the heat of the funniness of things to use that. But then later on, when I'm walking around and I'm just in
Right.
kind of like, you know, a
And
normal tentative mood. It's
you
not
don't want
quite.
to we don't necessarily want to be manifesting farts for people, because we're gonna be talking, every time we say fart, that's gonna be live,
And
a lot.
we might want to be manifesting fun though. So there's that side of
Yes. Okay.
it. Oh, incessant chiming. Do you hear that on your end?
Nope.
Oh, you know what I think it is? I think it's my clock reminding me of an appointment that I don't have today. It's like when you
Way to
get the
go.
wrong day and your clock alarms it just keeps going off when there's no appointment. So now that we've introduced the show,
Okay.
you've had a topic for the show that you wanted the first show to be on. Can you repeat that one more time?
I don't remember. Oh, well, I just said, I just said the thing. I just said, how do you walk the spiritual path in daily life? That was the question. I just brought up.
Excellent idea. Oh, before I forget, I want to mention one thing that I came across a book this week called Inner Bonding. And in that book, it has a very, very good explanation of the different kinds of wounding that we experience in life. There's like
Yeah.
three categories, and one of them I can't remember. I'm going to tell you that right away. but still, just two of the categories are really, really cool. But the third one is really cool too. I just can't remember it. The first category is the kind of wounding that we have no control over, which is it's called I can't remember the name, but it's the stuff that happens to us from the outside world. Like we lose our job, we're worried about where are we going to get money. We lose a loved one, either through separation or death, or just the trauma of things that happened to us in our childhood from others, friends, or family. These are all external factors that we can't control. But then the second kind of wounding is where wait a minute. Do we have to have a license to talk about this? No, I'm just joking. So the
I
second,
just now just go. Let's go
okay,
with it.
just go. Okay,
It's all good.
the
Don't worry.
second, the second kind
I'll
of
protect
wounding.
you.
Okay, the second kind of wounding is the conclusions that we make in those uncontrollable wounds about ourselves and that we carry with us. So it's the wounding that we might do it out of defense. We might do it out of just trying to cope, and it's a form of loving ourselves. But we make conclusions about things that aren't true, like, nobody loves us, or we're always going to have bad things happening to us, or, I never want to get close to people again because it always hurts. Those kinds of deep conclusions that we make, and then we kind of subconsciously carry that forward in our lives. That's wounding where we're kind of contributing to the wounding and carrying that
Right.
wounding forward. And then there's a third kind of wounding. So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to mention inner bonding. It's like bonding with yourself. It's really neat. So uh, yeah, it kind of related in my mind to the topic we're talking about today now, but I might have jumped the gun in a way there.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So the topic is how do we walk the walk, the daily spiritual walk? Do I have that right?
Yeah. How do we walk the spiritual path in daily life? How do
How
we
do we
do it in
walk the
daily?
spiritual path in daily life?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was just taken from what you had talked about when we first were talking, because you were talking about how we that it's one thing to be all talking, talking about philosophy or getting high in the pie in the sky, but are you actually in the living, breathing, die in the wool aspect of spirituality? Are you really getting into the nitty gritty? Are you facing your problems? Are you approaching your anger? Are you recognizing the opportunities to heal in your day-to-day life? Because I think that's the difference. I know I used to go to adult children of alcoholics meetings, and they're basically like Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, and it was
Mm,
really common for people to go in there, and everyone could sound like a spiritual yogi really easily, because it was really easy to intellectualize and conceptualize some matters.
mm,
Sometimes it's not
yeah.
easy, but a lot of people can do that.
Hmm.
But then they would very often do the same things over and over, or talk one thing but then do another when they live in life. And so
Right.
walking it is a totally different thing than thinking it,
Right.
um and doing it. And so I think real spirituality is that alchemy that I was talking about, where you have to get into your life and integrate it.
Hmm.
You have to really work. You got to work at it. And
Hmm.
work doesn't have to be bad, but it's just you have to really be in a process, in
Hmm.
order for you to see real and changing results.
Yeah.
Because it's very common for people to go to like 10 years of therapy and never actually reconcile with your mom. You go in, you talk about your mom, you know everything about it, and you could like have all
Hmm.
these theories, you know what Freud thinks about it, but do you actually recognize the chances to not be mad at your mom when she calls? Do you recognize
Hmm.
the experience of bitterness that you feel when you think about your mom? Do you
Hmm.
recognize the painful misery thoughts that come up when
And
when you talk to your
then,
mom?
and then, do you go through the inner work that transforms you inside so that you're not just trying to not do the wrong thing, but the right thing actually is healed and able to come out of you in those moments?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. The inner bonding.
And the outer bonding, right? But I think there's definitely the inner bonding. It's just like whatever we do within, then we are able to take it without. And if we try to just do it on the outside and don't do it on the inside, we're kind of living up to expectations, or we're trying to make it happen, but we're not. It's not really happening. It's not really happening. And so we're going to fail, you know, more if we're trying to just do it right. And uh, yeah, I go to some of those meetings too. Like I've gone to the CODA meetings, which is Codependence Anonymous.
Yeah, yeah.
And
That's basically what it was.
yeah, they're really great. I mean, I
Yeah.
think we all, to one degree or another, have codependent tendencies. And some of
Yes.
us have really, really deep, like childhood abandonment and isolation issues where
Very much so.
um, the self um, was severely disconnected, and or there's severe fear of
Yeah.
of not being disconnected from as an adult, that if we're not really aware of that, we're going to cling in ways that can have like two sides to them. They can have a negative and they can look positive, but they can be negative. It's hard to stand up for your own needs in a healthy way if you're trying to please others. And it's also hard to not get angry when people let you down if you're codependent. So there's all these different sides that that kind of appear complex, and can be confusing when there's these underlying deep fears of disconnection that came from like deep alienation and abandonment and isolation in childhood. And
Right.
so codependence one really great thing about going to these meetings is um, it's all good. It's like learning to go inside and transform is really, really good, but also learning what is better behavior and trying to reach for that better behavior is good too. That's not bad, you know. But doing the inner work and having it become an integrated connection within you is really good, you know. So the thing about going to the coda meetings I noticed is I began to understand and see and be able to know more and more what codependence looked like, how it felt, how others, when others who were talking about trying to overcome codependence were even acting codependent in the meeting, like they were being really impulsive about wanting to jump in and talk, and you could kind of feel that they were kind of like yearning for something that they weren't quite getting. And maybe I've experienced that at a point in my life where I was trying really hard for something, but I still couldn't. It wasn't satisfying me, and I would just reach harder and harder and harder. And that's kind of like a part of codependence. It's like we're looking for the love outside ourselves instead of going in and discovering that we're someone inside, and that we have that love, we can experience that love, and then we don't reach for it as much outside ourselves.
Right.
Right? It's more balanced.
Yeah. Yeah, we're dependent. We're dependent on the outer for our inner satisfaction, and that
Hmm.
can show up in all kinds of complex ways.
Right.
And codependence really is really just an illness of the ego. That's all it really is. It's just an illness of what happens when I used to always there used to be this children's book that was called Are You My Mommy? It was like this little duck that went around, and it was
Oh,
when it told
yeah.
it was like, Are you
I
my
think I
mommy? Are
remember
you my
that.
mommy? Are you my mommy?
Yeah.
And that's what the ego does to form, because it's basically
Oh,
like that's me, that's me, that's me, that's me, and then we get stuck and we
yeah.
get attached. And then the
Yeah.
other side of it thinks that too, and it creates that bond that I was talking about, which is what codependence is. It's when two people share the same reality, and so that I see that person in a certain way that is filling a void, and then they see me a certain way that's filling a void, and we have this
Hmm.
complex interaction that defines both of us
Hmm.
through that experience. Neither of each individual is able to exist outside of itself without the other interaction. um, but but being able to see that on a day-to-day basis is very important.
Yeah. And I want to say something about the duck too. The duck is really sweet, and I really love the duck. And I really love that the duck wants to find his mommy and everybody. That's not a bad thing. That's a sweet thing. That's a loving thing. And I love that the duck is trying to find its mommy and everybody. But
Right.
it's
But it's
kind of
just
but it's kind of sad at the
it's like
same time, right?
the prodigal son. It's like
Uh-huh.
it's the aspect of it's just a metaphor to
No,
describe
no.
what
I
happens.
I think it's more than a
It's like
metaphor.
separation.
I think it's part of us affirming that we are all loving and lovable in that
Yeah,
journey
and
when,
it's good that we're
right.
trying. I guess what you're saying
Yeah.
is, are we trying to find? We are, lost in many
Hmm.
ways. We're lost in space. We're trying to figure out where we are in space,
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
we orient through what we see, and then that creates our world and our
Right.
destiny.
See,
And what
there's something.
we're trying to
Mhm.
get back to the light.
Yeah. But there's something that happens in the abused experience that I've gone through, that I've experienced, and it gives me compassion for others, where I didn't, when I was struggling and suffering, I did not see myself as loving. When I was acting codependently, I did not feel I was loving and lovable. And so even when we're doing things that are dysfunctional and we're trying to learn about those and work out of those, our essence is that we are reaching for love, and that's lovable, even if we're still dysfunctional. And that's what I mean. by loving the duck.
Yeah,
Loving the
I
duck.
know. Yeah, no, it's not
Yes.
a bad thing. I was just
Yeah.
talking about. I was just
No,
talking
no, I'm
about
not
the.
countering or minimizing what you're saying. I'm just
Okay.
adding to how my heart moves in
Yeah.
that part of the discussion.
Love. You can add that to the potential titles. Loving the duck. You can add that
That's
to
okay. Loving the duck.
quite a few animals: the dog in the moon, the friendly llama, and the loving duck.
Oh man, you're right.
Either way, you got some good uh
Damn it.
Portland Portland shop ideas.
I
The loving duck
Portlandia.
could be that's definitely a Chinese restaurant. The friendly llama is a gift
That's
shop for sure.
that's a aphorism right there.
And
Is
the
they
dog
eat
in
the
the moon,
best.
I think, really actually is a coffee shop. I think there actually is a coffee shop called that.
And also, I was trying to hide the fact that I'm an animal lover, but I think it might have got out.
Yeah.
So, walking the spiritual journey, obviously, part of that is being willing to go inside and have that. It's to recognize that there's complexities to relating to ourselves and the world, and then going in and becoming more, trying to become more aware of what those complexities are, and then also going to a level of transformation.
Yeah.
And to boil down the transformation in a couple of simple words, I would say what that means is kind of like in a lot of these programs, they have that concept of a spiritual power or a higher power. I personally do experience that. Not everybody does, but they don't they don't make it mandatory, and they also say it can be very loosely defined, however works for anybody. But uh, but the other part of that is, like having that, looking for help in the spiritual power, and then also looking within ourselves to help ourselves to go into uh, what I like to think of as kind of like an inner guidance system, where
Yes.
we use certain cues to guide us in a direction as we go in to become aware. And one of the cues is actually the emotion of fear. I'm not going to say the emotion of fear. I'm going to say the feeling of fear, because I think that the difference between emotion and feeling is emotions are like the nerves that, like when we cut our finger, it's a really, really good thing. It's telling us something's wrong. It's the pain, right? So, like, if we have like what's called a negative emotion, I think all emotions are positive and they're all like a form of love. But the emotion is like the thing that comes from God that gives us these signals that there's something there, something's happening. But the feeling is when we associate a thought with a feeling, and then we have like the negative feelings or the positive feelings. Like, we make judgments on our emotions, we add thoughts to it, and then we have these feelings. And feelings of fear, one of the things that the guidance cue points that I use quite a lot is to look at, like, what's coming up for me right now that I'm afraid of. And as that, I sit with that. I focus on it. I don't focus in it in a compulsive way. I try to relax, and I try not to get into a thing where I'm spinning around in my mind on it, but I kind of sit with it and I try to kind of feel it. And as I sit with it, I notice that invariably something new will come up related to it. It can be an experience, it could be another feeling, it could be a thought, it could even be a voice of wisdom. But all these things that come up, I then use those as cues to continue the path. Sometimes it might go one way or the other, and I pick one way, and maybe I come to the other way later. But there's this process of going deeper in that and letting other things come up. And many, many times I've experienced this over and over again. I'll experience some kind of transformation, some kind of release, and some kind of deeper sense of integration and love and even power I never had in that thing ever before. So that's how I would describe transformation. One way.
I like it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Damn, this sun's getting hot behind me.
Yeah, Mustafar. Yeah, Mustafar.
Mm. I moose to fart. Calling
Mustafar.
it all. Yeah.
There's another moose.
That fart is. Have you ever come across a moose in the road? I have when I was in Alaska. Oh my God, it's scary.
Is
Talk
it?
about fear. Yeah, they're big. They're big, really big. Ah, and they just look at
Wow.
you like
Was it a male one? Was it a male moose?
I probably was too scared to check on that in any
Did
way.
it have like big horns? Did it have big
Yes.
horns?
Oh, okay, okay. I guess the males are the ones that just have the big horns. Yeah, it had big horns.
Oh, I think
Yeah.
so.
Okay. Yeah,
He
it's
did have
definitely an experience, man. What?
he had horns.
Yes, he did. Big horns. Very
Uh,
big. Yeah. It was like uh, a recognition of power and size. Like, I am now in this situation. He sees me and I see him. Uh-oh.
that's cool. I like
Yeah.
mooses.
Yeah. Uh, Bullwinkle. Is there anything else that you would like to add on your? Were you contemplating it this week at all, or kind
No,
of the
I
subject?
just
Or
came up with I just wrote that down to just sort of um recognize, just kind of shape what we were talking about in general. And so that could be just a good place to start, because that was what you were kind of the gist of what I took of as what you were saying. But I just think it's vitally important to remember that spirituality is something that you work on and you do and you are of in your day-to-day life. Like I
Mhm,
said with the joke of the spiritual fart, it was a joke, but it was serious in the fact that
mhm.
my own inner philosophy is to try to be each and every day be like, okay, what is it that I'm learning spiritually today? What is my spiritual theme?
Yeah.
What am I doing today?
So how
What
do you do
is
that?
Well, it's an inner, like you were kind of saying there's an inner GPS in there that you work really hard to listen, do a deep listening, a deep connection to your inner guidance system. And you call it an inner guidance system. There's so much to it. We actually have
Yeah.
all kinds of teachers and guidance systems and librarians that can help us access the Akashic records, and spiritual technicians and legal teams and
Energy work.
design coordinators. There's so many things, and these entities are designed to help give us the information that we need to help us navigate our daily life through spirit. And so
Mm,
what they're trying to do is trying to help us to train ourselves to be a blended, integrated machine, a spiritual human, or a human in spirit, either way. And so we're learning that walk. And so the trick is to learn to begin to see things as the way they do, the way
mhm.
spirit sees them, and then to honor and want to understand what your spiritual duty is for that day. What is it that you're supposed to um, usually it will require for me it's like forming new habits. It's doing or habits that are actually in alignment with my unique duty. That's another philosophy I have, is that each individual was born with a specific skill set that that the collective made in order to build a more harmonized world, and each individual is part of that interconnected whole, and therefore has is designed for unique duty and study that can benefit the greater populace. So if say somebody has a unique ability to understand schizophrenia, they're uniquely connected to that illness and then can heal or help support those that have it. And so they have basically the code to unlocking schizophrenia inside their DNA. Um, so each person has these duties, and so then the spirit says, okay, what do we need to do in order to bring out your unique gift? What do we need to do to unite you again? And what do we need to do to cultivate you? And so then each day, what happens is these portal points open up. They're these entry points that spirit meets the three-dimensional plane. And then if you learn to recognize those entry points and then learn to hear when and what you're supposed to do, I actually hear them, or at first you can just feel them. Then they can tell you what it is, where and when you need to go. Like I said, I exercise in the morning in tune to that. I start my study, I do my prayer, do my meditation. It tells me when to call people, when to like eat, and so on and so forth. All to basically harmonize and unite myself with that greater good. That's a cool image that's taking me over right now.
So I would like to kind of set the context for why do we say and why do we think that there's some deeper uh, thing that we're connecting to that we might call spirit or whatever,
Yeah,
light, energy. I just have a couple of thoughts I want to share real quick, and it's super nice to hear you describe all that stuff. Um, so what's the framework here? What's the concept? A lot of times different spiritual people will kind of talk in these terms, but what the question that comes up within me is, you know, why is it good to go to the spirit if we're in the physical world? You know, what is the advantage? What are we gaining?
yeah.
Is there
Well,
something well, hang on, let me
yeah,
ask the
yeah,
question and then give a couple ideas, because there's a lot of ways this could be answered. But I,
yeah,
I, I did have some thought in the last couple of days on this. So the thing is that, I think sometimes there's a concept out there that people who haven't really tasted yet of the bliss or the integration or whatever, it's kind of like, well, we're in the physical world. It's going to be more valuable for me just to get the physical world working well for myself. Why do I need to go to the spirit world? And then there's this idea, like, well, you're connecting with God, and so somehow you're going to have this inside track to God, and God's going to help you, or something like that. And maybe they take it further than that. There's many, many variations of that. But I was like, what is the fundamental reason that it's this way? And what came to me, I didn't just try to figure it out with my mind. I opened my heart to it, and I asked for an experience where I could really get what was going on. And it just so happened that I got in a meeting I found a meeting yesterday with this guru from India. And in the meeting, he said, kind of directly to me at one point, because he used my name. He said, uh, the center of the universe is the center of your heart. The center of the universe is in the center of your heart. And I have been having this growing concept of becoming a loving man lately, because I came out of an abused background where I didn't see myself as love. I seen myself as somebody who is trying to get love. I felt I was bad, And I felt like my journey was to, have good things come to me in the world, like get what I wanted, become successful, get money, get love, get a beautiful woman that I thought was beautiful, and all these things out there that I thought, um, you know, somehow not being alone, having somebody who could really relate to me and accept me as I am. These were all external things from others and from the world, and um, and it's also more than just uh, going inside and being transformed. The answer that came. So the idea came to me, or the experience came to me as I was meditating this morning, and I was trying to sit, like feel the energy within me, like, in my head, in my heart, at the base of my spine. And now I'm even getting to the point where I can feel the energy in my arms and my legs. And so I'm kind of like getting to the point where I can feel all of the energetic body inside of myself. As I was going there, I realized that I was still kind of like, what do I have to do to feel this energy? And I was still coming from like a point like reaching out, trying to get something outside of myself. Even inside of myself, I was trying to reach for something. Like, what do I do? And it was also like a doing thing, right? And what happened was I began to get this sense that all of the life force that is in the center of the universe, that caused the whole universe to become, that caused the whole universe to expand, that life force that caused everything to be something, which is everything we could ever want. It's everything that is there. And even on the spiritual realm, like this, I experience that the spirit is in all things. So that life force even is what's brought even the spirit of everything is in my heart. And so I was like meditating, okay, it's in my heart. And I began to suddenly get this sense that it was already there, and all I just had to do was let it out, let it come through me. And all of a sudden, it wasn't like a sense of doing something, it was a sense of letting something be there. And then I was like, well, is there anything much to this? Like, what's the big deal? How is this such a great thing? Like, if I have all this, how's it going to change anything in my experience? And as I stayed with it, I suddenly began to realize that it's literally everything that we could ever think of that we would want is what's coming out of me and is already there. So, and it actually fundamentally, I could even feel that it was going to make me being on a regular everyday job easier, because it was going to be making me less afraid about somehow doing enough to be happy while I'm on the job, doing whatever my job was. I mean, I could just feel like it was translating and transforming my inner sense of being fulfilled and having everything, even down to the practical life level, when I was thinking about practical things I was going to have to do on Monday. And so that's one way that I would say that going deeper really translates into getting something real in this real physical world we're in.
Yeah.
Are you still being mesmerized by my background?
Yeah, partly. I've got used to it, yeah. Felt like it was
It's
inside of an
hypnotizing you.
intestine or
Oh
something, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I wish they were just like continuous, like they didn't have that break point and they restart. Because then it would really mess with your mind. It's like,
Yeah. It never ever ended.
yeah,
Yeah.
the never-ending loop. It's not
Yeah,
a
you
loop.
definitely.
It's not a loop.
It
It's
is. It
never-ending
is, man.
going forward, right?
Yeah.
Hey, there's a concept. Maybe that's what the universe is like. It's never-ending. Now I'm gonna start getting mesmerized. I think there's a certain limit to these meetings. Like if you have a free account, I think like there's only a certain limit. But let's see, we got together at 1. It's out like now 2:35. Oh, I'm wondering if that's if you just log in with a work email, that maybe they give you
Okay.
that
I
40
do.
minute
I do
limit.
have to. I do have another thing pretty soon. So.
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah. It's just like they definitely say on YouTube, don't have meetings this long. You know, don't have
I
videos
mean,
this
we
long.
had a good run. Yeah.
Yeah, good first video. All right.
Definitely.
Well, thank you so much, Frank. I
Absolutely,
gotta I
Rob.
gotta say, even though we haven't connected for a while and we're getting back together and this is so exciting, I just gotta already say, I love you. So,
I love you too, my friend. I feel
all
like
right,
we have a great connection. A lot of
good.
fun. I have a good time talking to you.
Thank you, Frank. Likewise. All right.
All
I
right.
guess if nothing comes up, I'll see you next week.
All right. Talk to you next
Okay.
week.
Okay. Bye
All
bye.
right. Bye, brother.